heavy Dallas Cowboys episode. Do you remember Trump with Iran? Do you remember Leon Let It Be?
Oh my goodness.
Leon, let it be! Don't touch it!
Let it be. Don't touch it, man.
Don't touch it, Leon! It's the ball. Just don't touch it! That's all Trump had to do. Just don't touch it. Couldn't do it. Welcome back into the Armchair Politics Podcast. My name is David Coe. With me, as always, is Alex Smith and Dr. Christopher Carter. Welcome back, Dr. Carter. How were your travels, man?
It was good. It was good. I went to the South. I was down in Savannah. There's a lot I can say about Savannah. That's for, the podcast we do where I just talk a lot about slavery, but that's not what we're talking about today.
We'll touch on it.
It's a port city for a reason. They were import exports. You can imagine what the initial imports and exports were. But no, human cargo, that is. Human cargo. So, but no, it was, we had a good time. I got a chance to see my sister, my niece, it was good. It was good. So, but I was fortunate that I was just ahead of the absolute utter chaos of the airports. I experienced some chaos, but it was right at the beginning of the ramp up. Even flying out of LAX was busier than normal. We got to Atlanta, and Atlanta airport, because that's where I connected, was crazy town.
I saw pictures.
Luckily we didn't have to go through, TSA
security.
Again, the line, but even just like people getting into lounges because people are missing flights because of the long TSA lines, or just like the area's just crowded because people weren't able to travel when they thought they were, and there was just an energy. I mean, the airport's already chaotic anyway, and they just ramped it up. And so I'm imagining right now, right, you got a hyper stressful situation. You got people that are already anxious about traveling, like me. I gotta take Xanax to fly. I'm being honest with y'all. That's what I gotta do. I gotta just numb out, right? And you know what? I think somebody was like, you know what we need to do that? We need to toss in some crazy people with some guns. That's exactly what we need.
And the somebody you're talking about just happens to be the President of the United States, who has access to all of the men with guns.
Oh,
Can you imagine? My favorite, David Dennis Jr. hit the nail on the head to me. He was like, can you imagine being a TSA worker, not getting paid to show up to work in this chaos, and then a bunch of armed guards who are getting paid to show up and do nothing? Like, right. It's the TSA in the air, the ICE agents in the airport is like the perfect distillation of the Trump administration to me, because we don't have the money to pay the system support staff that actually makes our systems run, but we do have enough money to pay the armed guards to just stand there and watch the system fall apart.
Yeah, it's very much chef's kiss. And I mean, this is also part of Project 2025, page 820, whatever, you know what I mean? It's like privatizing TSA. These people,
for a second I thought you knew. I was like, my man knows the page numbers.
No, it's deep in there, but yeah, no, I mean, you're seeing images of ICE arresting people at the airport, because this is the thing about ICE. They have to make a spectacle no matter where they go. That's part of their job. So you've seen them arrest people. Now, thankfully, you've seen them getting cussed out by folks who are traveling. And you've seen, and then all of a sudden one thing about this administration is that they are obsessed with optics. So they were like, hey, we've got a couple of bad days of press. Let's have some ICE officers handing out waters, because that's the thing. Not making the TSA lines go faster. We're going to have them hand out waters. We are witnessing a Jets-like organization being run. The way the Jets are run, that's the way this administration's run. Now, is it a coincidence?
Is it a coincidence that Woody Johnson is a huge Trump supporter and was the Trump's ambassador to the United Kingdom? Is that a coincidence? I don't know. Just laying out the facts.
I don't know, Carter. What do you think?
That is wow. Because what happens is the Jets stumble into things that work right. It's always by accident. Like, you could tell they just tried some junk and then it just worked. And there are some things in the 8 years he's been, however long he's been president, when you add it all up, they're like, oh, okay, that wasn't terrible, right? But then most of it's just utter chaos, total disorganization. And people always claiming that they're trying to do something that, they actually don't have the intellectual capacity or strategic intelligence to do. It's like, oh, this time we're going to get it right. And then you know what? You can't draft a quarterback. And that's what I'm telling you. When they took my D coordinator from the Lions, I was like, there is no way if I was a black head coach, you couldn't pay me enough. Jesus would have to come down and be like, hey man, you know what? You need to do this. You need to do this. Like that's how much it would take for me. Jesus, literal divine intervention. Because I'm like, you only get one shot when you're a black head coach. You ain't getting a second shot. I ain't wasting that on the Jets, man. That's crazy. That's crazy.
If I could explain, let me put myself in Aaron Glenn, the head coach of the Jets, mind for a second, because he was drafted by the Jets and he played there, so he does have some loyalty there. But also playing in the Saints and being in New Orleans, maybe he's just like how like we in our pre-show we were talking a little bit about Frankie Taylor Paul in The Bachelorette Mess. And you know how some men will just like look at like Frankie Taylor Paul and be like, I could fix her.
Fix that. Yeah.
Right.
You're right. Yep.
And I think that's what Aaron Glenn. He's like, I could fix that. Imagine what the Jets could be. And it's foolish, but
oh my man, that is so right. That is exactly what that's that same energy.
So we're here today to talk about cult of personality and how that has really, wrapped our country into knots in a lot of ways. And I think there's no better place to start than right with where we are in the Trump of personality of MAGA. Did I say, Trump of personality? I think that works too, because it's absolutely, a singularity of cult. And I think that in a very strange way, that's almost a blessing, because one of the strange things is the GOP is even scared of it too. You see this concerted effort from the GOP to try and wrestle Trump support and make it Republican support, and they can't do it because Trump's cult is so very strong.
Yeah, and I think it's also a lot of them are non-Republican traditional voters. So these are infrequent voters who were literally only brought out in 2016 because Donald Trump activated something in them that was dormant. I told David a couple of days ago that this cult of personality, this Trumpism is and it's part of a long disease that the country has, but it's like a disease that remains dormant in your body until something hits it and activates it. And so I think that that support isn't transferable, and you're seeing that through multiple special elections. Last night in Mar-a-Lago district, a Democrat won. Yeah. So his disease or his cult mind is not transferable.
Yeah. And before we get too deep into it, Carter, because in a lot of ways you're the expert here, you want to kind of lay
He's not
out...
a cult leader. Hold on. He's not a cult leader.
Yeah.
He is
but he could be.
But he could be.
Look at that hair. He could be.
He could be, but let's make that clear.
No, I think, I think you've had a lot of people talk about MAGA as a kind of cult. And I think from a religious studies perspective, it fits all the kind of parameters from which you would define what a cult is. Now, we're talking about cult of personality. You're talking about literally a public figure. It could be a political figure. It could be a religious figure, or someone that's in leadership, where they basically are the person who need to be loved and admired, but also seen through the lens of always right. They're the person who cannot be questioned. And so the distinction between MAGA 1.0 or Trump 1.0, I might say, and Trump 2.0, is he's deliberately surrounded himself with people who are only going to affirm any of his assumptions. And so what that does, it creates a framework by which you don't have any kind of the self-correcting mechanisms that are supposed to be within traditional religion, right? Religions often have some form of what we would call within Christianity sin, or something that is done wrong, that taints, that defiles. Within these situations, what taints, what's wrong, and what's defiled is what questions the authority, what questions the leader. And I mean, you see this throughout history, right? Well, you look at North Korea, you look at what happened in Germany with Hitler. You can even look at what's happening in Hungary. I can't think of that. Orban.
Viktor Orban.
And and so you see, you get these situations set up where the thing that is what is ultimately understood to be wrong is to question the authority and power of the person in charge. And when that happens, you lay the ground. It makes it so difficult to actually have any kind of democratic institution or norms, right? Because the norms are defined by what the person wants.
Yeah, and I think it's a great example of that is you Trump 1 versus Trump 2. You look at the difference between like Jeff Sessions versus Pete Hegseth. You know, both terrible politicians, but Jeff Sessions is his own person who have his own thoughts, and Pete's just a sycophant. Go ahead, Alex.
Well, yeah, I mean, you think about Mad Dog. Yeah, I mean, and when you want to go from defense to defense secretary, Mad Dog Mattis or James Mattis and Pete Hegseth. Yes, I mean,
exactly.
Those are very distinct, serious, non-serious person. Also,
it's like we're going from Jimmy Johnson to Barry Switzer.
Look, Barry Switzer won a ring. You say what you want. You say what you want about Barry Switzer.
Listen, here's that man. You know that North Louisiana came in hard with the defense of the Cowboys. Oh man,
I like the Cowboys. Let me be clear. You know, if I'm Bernie Sanders, let me be clear. Let me be clear. I do not like the Cowboys. I hope that they never win a game. I hope that their fans never see another championship. But I will say that Barry Switzer, you know, not a halfback.
It's not a great cop. I was just being silly.
Dave, it's talking about Barry Switzer to Dave Campo.
There it is. That's the one.
Yep. Nobody look up Dave Campo because I know none of y'all don't know who Dave Campo is. Look him up. That's how relevant he is. But I think that's kind of what we're dealing with. And I think Carter's right. You have a person Trump who's just like, I need a level of enabling that allows my worst impulses. And he actually learned from not having people responsible around him in the last administration. He learned, he was like, if I'm going to do this and do it the right way, which is the wrong way, but the right way to him, I have to have absolute sycophants around me. And if I can just say one, go ahead, Carter.
I mean, it's worship. I mean, that's what it is. And like that's where I want to get into the religious image. They worship him. Their loyalty, devotion, worship. This is the distinction between Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0.
And we're seeing it. We're seeing it literally. You're seeing it as, you know, when they're delivering messages to the soldiers going to fight in Iran, that this, you know, Trump has divine power to do this. They are like, they're not even hiding it anymore. They're quite literally making themselves a religious cult. You see the picture of all of the people praying to Trump like he's Jesus. It's textbook.
But I think this has the history of kind of cult of personality in the long scope of humanity really goes back to, you know, you can go to ancient Egyptian times and all of these things. So you had, and even the Romans really kind of upped it and put it on a little bit of steroids. But what you would have is it was usually dealt with monarchies or dynastic families. And they were considered, you know, godlike, that they had the divine right to rule. And so you have that long stretch of history of that happening, right? And then outside, when you leave the monarchy a little bit, because it still exists in England, when you leave the monarchy and you have the advent of the radio and the television, that then allows you to deify these people visually and for them to create their own kind of version of what heaven looks like, which is them at the top. So
could you imagine looking at Eric Trump and being like, this guy is has divine power to be a leader?
I think this is the thing that can kind of moves on to the like the actual ranking and sorting, because if you look at the people who are quote unquote royalty right now, like you don't look at any of the royal family in England and they don't look like, I mean, King Charles, his fingers look like sausages. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just not like that. Like I mean, they do look like sausages. And so, like I say that as a vegan, right? I'm just like look at it, I'm like, that's not good, you know. But it becomes a part of what is normative and what is practiced. And so you just assume that these people, it's like we talk about billionaires or certain classes of people, you project certain things upon them because of the status that has been handed to them. And when you begin to question that, right, that's when you begin to undermine it. Like we saw this with the Protestant Reformation, which is really within the West, right? So now I'm talking about not Eastern traditions, but Western traditions, begins to undermine monarchies, is Martin Luther and the beginnings of the Enlightenment and just questioning authority in that way. And I think when you look at like for instance, I know we're going to get to this in a moment, like the founding fathers, like this is one of the reasons why they were so explicit about the separation of religion and state, because they knew the ways in which religion and religious thought could be manipulated to support the abuse of power. And that's why they wanted to be separated. And what we see happening now is just a reimagining of how the quote-unquote founding fathers thought, making them Christian and making them religious to then justify the imposition of religious beliefs. Like,
it's a Christian nature, Carter.
Yeah.
This is a Christian nation.
Yeah, it's like Thomas Jefferson was not a Christian. Like, but the thing
No.
is, you can read this stuff, right? Like they wrote it. They're like that, and then they're
Can we, Carter? Can we read this stuff?
I mean, well, there you go.
So anyway, we are here. We are literally. I've got my tier maker, and we are going to tier 10 or so cult of personalities, mostly throughout American history. We started with Donald Trump, and then we're going to flash back to our founding fathers, and then move forward throughout essentially American political cult leaders. So we do have to make a decision. Do we want to wait on putting Donald Trump onto a tier, or do we want to go ahead and put him on a tier and see if we are going to move him later?
We ain't moving him nowhere. He is
So-
going to the top, brother.
That's what I was. I mean, I kind of think we
Red
gotta
is.
got to put him on the top and see if anyone can beat him,
Right.
because he's definitely the end game right here. What are we thinking for a name here? Charles Manson?
Yeah.
The Manson tier.
Yeah,
The Manson
baby.
tier.
The
The
Manson
Manson
tier.
tier.
Girl, you in trouble.
It's Mon, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
The
That's-
Manson. Oh, and the picture. Oh
Okay.
my God, the picture works perfectly too.
Yeah.
and actually think about it. Like it because we're basically ranking this from like the most harmful to like the least harmful. But when you actually think about it, the amount of unnecessary death that happened under Donald Trump's presidency, and not just this term with ICE and this illegal war. I'm talking about COVID and the ways in which so many people and their family dealt with. Like, this man has caused so much death in this country unnecessarily.
And not to
Like-
mention his movement and the Maha movement continuing to cause the degradation of public health in America. You were just in South Carolina. How the measles doing?
Hey, no, man, I'm all vaccinated, bro. But, like,
Carter's like, I got the shots.
Look, the measles coming back. I just read this article about polio.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, we got rid of polio. Like, we had literally, I'm polio.
Polio.
Polio, man.
Yeah.
Like, that is crazy. Like, the people in Baja should be like, that should be a sign, like, maybe we have taken this too far. When polio come back. But anyway.
They're
Nah,
watching
they
too many Instagram reels of pseudoscientists
Yeah.
and being like, hey, man, it's good. Get it. It'll make you stronger.
That's how you get the immunity.
That's how you get the immunity. But like but Trump,
man.
the reason Trump is the most dangerous and the cult of personality with him is that he is infallible to his followers. He can literally do no wrong. So even when he makes their lives miserable, he deports their family, he causes members of their family to die, they cannot go against him because in their minds, to do that would be, because they've identified so much of who they are with him, they would have both an identity crisis and a loss of who they are. And so
and a loss of their community.
and their community.
Access to power, it's everything. All
And I
that
think
stuff.
I think as we get into this, one of the things that I always go back to Zohran and socialism. So here I am in my go to my sweet spot in my wheelhouse.
Our weekly Zohran moment.
We shouldn't be talking about Zohran, so let's talk about Zohran.
So let's talk about Zohran.
Anytime you see a really successful cult leader or any successful cult, what it always starts with is a vulnerable population. And so it's one of the reasons why, MAGA wants to destroy public works and social services is because when you have people that are desperate and are isolated, that's why we're destroying third spaces. You have the conditions that gives you a large population of vulnerable people that can be sucked into cults easily.
Yeah, and I think Carter would have this great quote, and I want you to jump in, Carter, is that these people always feel like what is at stake for them? Carter always says, what is at stake for these people? And that's when you start to understand how vulnerable they are to these things. Go ahead, Carter.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's basically it. Is like, it's a lot of, there are a whole lot of poor people that are down there that are mostly white, and they need a scapegoat. And so they're already able to play on that. But then when you add into the psychological dimensions of it, when you fuel their fears, right, that people are taking something away from them rather than recognize, and it's the brown people, it's the women, it's all this other stuff, rather than blaming the actual billionaires and the 1% that are taking it away. That's how they're able to ramp up, right, and create that kind of vulnerability where people respond. Now, the danger with that is, let's not forget before we move on, I'll say this in, it's the French Revolution. Like, this can go too far. Like, you can take this a tad too far. And, like, I'm telling you, the thing that scares me about him taking it too far is deploying ICE at polling stations for the midterms. That scares me because I feel like that's the thing that, like people, the way people talk about voting in this country, and if people feel intimidated that they can't go vote, because ICE, as Alex said, these are not the best and brightest. They are not going to just bother people of color. They're going to intimidate other people.
Someone said that with ICE they've created a career plan for the almost school shooters.
Oh,
wow.
Dang.
Jesus. Whoa.
Man.
Oh man. And here,
That's
I was just gonna call them the replacements, but that is
All right,
more
I'll bring it.
like...
I'll bring it. I'll make it a little nice. I don't know. I have no. This comp for me is just vibes. But my football coach comp for Donald Trump is Rex Ryan. Just because,
okay,
like Rex Ryan. Like I feel a little bit. I don't like Rex Ryan, so I don't feel too bad about that.
Okay,
but
there you
like,
go.
I feel bad. I feel bad comparing Rex Ryan to. I'm sorry, Rex. That was a little mean. But like, y'all got the same vibe, and we were talking about the Jets.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're keeping the storyline going.
Yeah. But anyway, so Donald Trump, he's on the Manson tier.
Right,
we got any other thoughts for it? We're flashing all the way back to our founding fathers, George Washington, the Adrian Peterson of presidents, if you will.
All day.
All day. And his foil and nemesis, Tommy J.
Tommy J.
Was his Secretary of State, was his Secretary of State until they couldn't, stand each other. One was a Federalist and the other one was a, Thomas Jefferson.
But they kind of fit into the same mold when we talk about cult of personality, right, Alex?
Right, and I think one of the things about the Founding Fathers, by the way, the Founding Fathers ain't fine shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, the country has already existed. We had a framework that was stolen from indigenous populations in terms of how they organized themselves in states and whatnot, whatever. But they had a big cult of personality because people deified them in their infinite wisdom that when they created the country and the Constitution and all of these things, that it was not only divinely inspired, but it was perfect. And that to anything other than that, but they don't realize we had amendments, right? They completely missed that. And so, but this idea of the founders being infallible is also the problem that you get with their inability to wrestle with the biggest question, which is slavery. And so by saying the Founding Fathers in their infinite wisdom did not deal with slavery, that did not allow the country to actually do anything about enslavement until you get to the point where you have abolitionists being like, all right, well, we need to eradicate this in areas of the Northeast and the North, and then the South being like, this is our economy, this ain't going nowhere. And then the tension starts. But, it reminds me of, like, going back to Carter's favorite show and ours, Boondocks, Uncle Ruckus. America is Uncle Ruckus when it comes to the Founding Fathers. Uncle Ruckus is, the white man in his infinite wisdom.
Oh my God, that is.
But anyway,
that is 100% it.
Right, but I mean, it's like that mindset then allows for us to not critically think about these were slave owners, a lot of them, if not all of them, except for John Adams and maybe one or two others. Yeah. We're all slave owners. They were all wealthy, usually wealthier people who had access to money. Because remember, people who can vote then were just landowners. So white male landowners.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm just saying.
I think also what's interesting about Jefferson and Washington is how they become a cult of personality develops around them later in life, but during their life, they
posthumously.
So definitely posthumously, right? Like during their life, they were highly regarded, but it wasn't like Trump. Like they were brought to question. There were debates. There was friction. And they questioned themselves. They evolved. They changed their positions on certain policies, particularly Jefferson. And so like that's what's interesting. It's almost like it makes me wonder to an extent. And I hadn't thought about this, Alex, until you just brought this up. To what extent are they just used in a particular way, right? Rather than actually having been a cult of personality while they were alive. I hadn't really thought about it in that way before, because maybe teach history is like, big man hero history. But I don't know that that's exactly how they saw themselves in the moment. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a really good point, Alex. Yeah, I love that.
So I've got a comp, and then I'll pitch a tier, and we can keep going on this. So my comp for Thomas Jefferson, because Thomas Jefferson was kind of a flamboyant character. Y'all know this because y'all are big history buffs. This is right in your wheelhouse, Alex. You're gonna hate this one.
Where is he going?
You're gonna hate this. You're gonna hate this copy. And he's a needler. He was an ass. He was charismatic, but also an asshole. In a lot of ways, but really talented, a really talented politician and really good at his job. And so, to me, that's why Thomas Jefferson is Lane Kiffin.
I like that. Actually, I like that. No, I like it. I think that's a good.
Alex, your reaction was perfect. Thank you. Brought me all the joy.
I know you don't like. I'm just saying, but I'm not because I'm not gonna do LSU. But I think in terms of personality, I think I'm telling because Thomas Jefferson like. Again, the man was smart. We're not saying he wasn't ever wrong, but he actually had some good ideas, in terms of democracy, you know? And so, that's good. I'm sorry, Alex.
I mean, I'd be honest with you. I was prepared to call bullshit on whatever David was going to say. Like in my mind, I wasn't even paying attention to what he was saying until he said Lane Kiffin. And then I was like, shit, because Lane Kiffin's the son of a coach, basically born on third base, act like he had a triple, but I think, was humbled by Saban. But I think you're right. I think he grew up with privilege, immense amount of privilege. Thomas Jefferson grew up around immense amount of privilege, married into deep money, and just kind of was big on this philosophy of freedom and what that meant. So I think Lane Kiffin is the same way, where he's just, his offensive philosophy is just this, it's spot the ball. Anyway, I don't want to go too deep into that. But I think that's very apt. And where I see this in the tier list, and I think Carter continue to kind of lay this out about this idea of like posthumously being deified. I think they're in the B tier because I don't think they're the most dangerous, but I think they were used dangerously.
Yep.
I completely agree. Can I pitch a name for the tier? I want to pitch them as the Mary Kay salesman.
Ooh, okay. Explain that one. Explain that one.
Because multi-level marketing schemes are absolutely cults, and they're one of the most and they're one of the most American cult things, and because these vast majority women are they're not bad people, but they are being used in this system to promote a cult.
Throw them in there.
Do you want to do Mary Kay, or do you want to do like Ponzi, like the Ponzi tier or Ponzi scheme tier or something like that? But I mean Mary Kay is very specific, but if you want to be, but
you can do Mary Kay. You can throw Ponzi
I like the imagery of our founding fathers being in the Mary Kay tier.
Yeah. Like multi-level marketing. I was like, Ponzi scheme. Here we go.
And that one Mary Kay rep that's going to see this and be like, hey.
They used to get my grandma all the time. Like Mary Kay and Avon, they would come.
Oh, the Avon lady.
Oh, man, the Avon lady would come. I'm like, man, every time I saw a lady, I was like, look, man, my grandma is on a fixed income. Come on now. I take her money.
What was it? What was the old school one? Was the Caught My Mom? Amway?
Oh yeah, Amway is from Michigan, from Grand Rapids. So that was like
Mazel tov.
huge where I grew up, man. Like Amway was just normative. Like it was just everybody did that. So
yeah, no, we didn't realize those were MLMs. Those were MLMs.
Yeah, that's the DeVos, them the conservatives. That anyway, that's
of course. Oh,
okay.
Who's
Michigan,
surprised?
Michigan.
Who's surprised that the founding fathers of modern are conservatives who are also the founding fathers of Christian nationalism? Like cults.
Colts, man. They can't kick it.
Yeah, exactly.
They can't kick it.
Moving on. Oh, that's delightful. To good old honest Abe, and I'm gonna start with my comp for Abe because this one's just on looks alone. Because Abraham Lincoln, now when I look at him, he just reminds me of Boban Marjanovic.
That's messed up, man.
I know. So is some of the shit Abraham Lincoln did, though.
So
man.
So this is interesting.
Oh man,
Lincoln.
that's so funny.
Lincoln he was very much hated through parts of the country, but to the areas where he was, very popular, he was very popular. Lincoln was like but I think also there is a posthumous aspect to him as well, because again, like we said a few episodes ago, he tried to send our ass back to Liberia or back to Africa because he felt like we could not live together. Whites and blacks could not live together once Black Americans were free. And so I think there is a rewriting of history and a deifying of a person that is unnecessary, similar to John F. Kennedy. I love John F. Kennedy very much. He was a very flawed human being. But when you die as a young person, you get mythologized, and that mythology creates a cult of personality. Assassinations create.
Exactly. That's how he died. It's how he died, right? Like that is, I think, a big part of it.
Is there an example of that recently? I can't think of one.
Oh, easy now.
I'm being silly.
It's fresh. It's fresh.
Yeah.
But yeah, they want to put statues of Charlie Kirk everywhere. So yeah, I mean, this is the American way.
Man, if they put up some statues of Charlie Kirk and they try to do and they try to make it like an MLK, I'm telling you, like I think black folks for the most part have been like, okay, this is like some white people stuff. This is kind of ridiculous. It is what it is. We gonna step aside. But as soon as it gets real serious with that and that kind of comparison, I mean, we're only 10% of the population, but that's like there's certain things that I think all of us will rally around and say this matters, and that's gonna be something that's gonna really galvanize a bunch of folks to be like, no.
They better put some high walls around those Charlie Kirk statues.
Yeah, I can.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Now I got another comp for Abe before we
an actual comp.
Honest Abe. Well, not like as a sports comp, because I'm sure y'all have just kind of like Babe Ruth. There have always been rumors about Honest Abe's, one might say, racialized identity because of how he looked and how tall he was and all. Anyway, and so I was thinking like Mike McDonald, like the guy who used to coach the
a biracial king. Biracial king, Mike McDonald.
It's like you look at him, be like, what? I mean, like if you know, you can kind of look at like you see his dad. His dad look kind of like the barge. You'd be like, all right, I see that.
The barge.
And
his dad looked like the barge. His dad like the barge.
The Emancipation Proclamation might sound like something that's like just like really center to America, but like I'm sure back in the day that was like the orbit motion, like blowing people's mind.
Exactly.
Right? Oh, and it's Mike McDaniel.
Oh, McDaniel.
Oh, you're right. Mike McDonald's in Seattle. You're right. We knew who you were talking.
Won a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
we know you weren't talking about that honky up in Seattle. I really like Mike McDonald. I think he's great.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He is a good coach. I mean, that's anyway. No, I mean, that's why. What's his name in Baltimore lost his job. I mean, they kept taking his assistant coaches, and they took that last one. He couldn't.
Harbaugh.
Him. Harbaugh. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think we got to put Abe underneath the Mary Kay tier. Because I don't think it was the C tier, because I don't think it was multi-level marketing. I think it was more of a revisionist history. And I think that's the thing about Lincoln, is that as great as he was, they typically leave out some of the other things that he did. Like one of the things, if you ever listen to Steven Spielberg, I'm a massive fan of Steven Spielberg. One of the reasons I got into film, the way in which he talked about Lincoln passing the 13th Amendment was not to Lincoln. It really wasn't as altruistic as the movie would make it seem. And it's a movie, and I get it. But this was a strategic thing. And again, like I said, it wasn't necessary that Black Americans were going to stay in this country. Now, once he got, when you go black, you never go back. Once he got ahead of us, he started talking about the enfranchisement of men, voting and stuff like that. That's when you started to get Reconstruction and all these other things. So he had a vision post, but he wasn't really the architect of a lot of it. There were a lot of radical Republicans who were liberationists in Congress who were kind of really the building blocks of a lot of this. So I think there was a revisionist history that creates a cult of personality by Abraham Lincoln. Good president, but still had his foibles.
I think for tier name, I like revisionist history as a tier name. I like nostalgia as a tier name. Like, that's really what, like, both of them, I think, kind of capture what happened with him and how he became a cult of personality.
I like that.
I think either one of them. So don't ask me how to spell nostalgia. I don't know. I'm the most educated out here.
PhD.
But I'm like,
I can't spell either, so shit's gonna be spelled wrong unless Alex is correcting me, because that's wrong. But I don't know how to spell it either.
It's all right. We got it. We know what
Okay.
we're talking
It looks like I'm spelling it in like a Nordic language.
Makes sense.
about. There's people anyway, somewhere up there.
Oh, amazing. Next up,
You know who it
we're
is.
going to FDR, Mister New Deal, Franklin, Delano, Roosevelt. Another favorite of Alex. I'm gonna let you start on this one.
So Franklin Roosevelt's cult of personality is summed up in the best way I can put it is that, like, I don't even want to comp him to a Dallas Cowboy coach, but you got my brain thinking. I'm like, he's Jimmy Johnson. Like, the Cowboys were languishing, and all of a sudden this man wins 3 championships, and he is just like, he does the impossible in Dallas. But this is the best story to describe FDR.
Before you hit in that, because
Yeah.
I want to throw my comp out there too, because
Okay.
I think it's better. And my comps are never better than yours. Because to me, so we talking about Zohran and like how Alex and I were texting about like the pothole blitz that they had in New York, and Alex and I were talking about how like people are like, oh my God, he's this most amazing mayor, and it's like, no, he's just actually doing basic services. It's like if a coach were like, hey, you know what, I think we should really focus on the trenches, and everyone was like, what? Amazing. That's you're revolutionizing football,
Controlling the line of scrimmage?
I've never heard of it. And so that's why, to me, I think FDR is like Greg Popovich, because like,
I like
he's
that better.
really like, because he's really just like a back to basics, and he's also like, Greg Popovich was really great at seeing seeing the really simple things that other people missed. You know, Greg Popovich was the first coach to recognize international players, and I think that Roosevelt's ability to just see the basic things that are in front of him that other politicians at the time didn't see or didn't have the courage to see, and I think that's appropriate with Greg Popovich going to look at international players. You know, I think most coaches had an arrogance that like America's just the best, and Greg was like, no, like, let me look at all of this, and really ended up changing the shape of modern basketball.
Absolutely.
Literally, I was just like, no, I think that's 100%. I think that's such a great comp, because I think that is, when you look at current NBA, I mean, you look at the Lakers right now, I mean, where would they be without Luka? You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, it is a shift in the way we conceptually think about not only how basketball can be played, like, who, you know, from my perspective, actually can ball, you know?
Preach.
And if you're a fan of this podcast, you know that Carter is one of the most anti-racist people in every aspect of his life, except judging a basketball player.
Except basketball. Like, that's why they're like, I don't know. I'm like, I just like my brain. It just has it, you know. And the thing is, like, I gotta see you play. That's all I'm saying. Before I would be like, you can't. But I'm like, you know, I just gotta see it. I gotta see my eyes. I gotta trust, because I grew up around too many suburban kids who think they can ball because they can ball like in their suburbs, and then I'm like, man, get out of here with that mess, man. So anyway, that's my own trauma. That's all that is, my own trauma.
No trauma.
Oh
That's a good
man,
comp.
that's a really good comp. I'm like, yeah,
That's probably the best comp we've had on the show. I think you're right. Shout out to Popovich, who's still recovering and as woke as hell. God bless him, man.
We love Pop.
May he remain who he is. But I think one of the stories I was going to tell you about FDR is when he died, 1945. He was in Warm Spring, Georgia, which was his polio retreat town that he created. When they were bringing his body back from Warm Springs, Georgia, there was a reporter and a ton of mourners in this train station, and this mourner was just this citizen was crying, and this reporter was being real kind of an asshole and was like, "Did you know Franklin? Why are you crying?" Basically, did you know Franklin Roosevelt? And the guy wiped the tears from his eyes and he said, "I didn't know President Roosevelt, but he knew me." Ooh. That's the story. That's the story of FDR's cult of personality within the country, because he 4 terms, I think, 4 terms, 16 years, I think. And you had most people who did not know another president other than him in their life. And what he did between the Depression and the war, which I'm assuming all of that exacerbated his illness, killed him. He actually, I think that cult of there would be a crucifix and a picture of FDR in people's homes.
Yeah.
And so that was, if you're next to the crucifixion of our Lord and Savior, I think that deified him. And I think he was deified while he was still alive. The Armchair Politics podcast is brought to you by Volvo. If you're looking for a smooth, reliable ride with a slightly unreliable electronic system, choose Volvo. Looking to pay a small fortune for reoccurring maintenance? Choose Volvo. Volvo wants to keep you safe, stylish, and in neutral like the Swedish in World War II. Check your local dealers for all kinds of savings that you'll need later to fix the obvious issues that should have been recalled.
Something I learned when I was studying for my exam in race theory is the role that FDR played in creating the draft, right, the selective service draft, and how initially black men weren't allowed in that, but they needed black folks to go to fight in World War II. And so black men were not, the military was still segregated. Black people were not wanting to join the military because of the consequence of going to fight in World War I and coming back home and still not being treated like a citizen. And so what the compromise was is FDR actually finally got rid of convict leasing ultimately, because at this time, if you've seen the movie 13th, you know that people they were still basically enslaving black men for committing any kind of felony, right? Anything that was just literally anything that you would think would be a misdemeanor back then was a felony. And there was deep pressure on him to pass civil rights legislation. And so this is, I don't know what that term escapes me right now for some reason. I'll think of it in a moment. But basically, it was a way in which you could have ultimately what can come to look like a win-win, but it did get him much more support within the black community for civil rights. But it was literally because he had to be pressured into it. I'm not going to say that.
Yes.
I'm sure he was. All of my folks had some kind of racism because that just was norm. But that doesn't also mean they weren't willing to make a compromise for the sake of winning, basically. So
yeah, no, and I think that's Eleanor Roosevelt deserves a hell of a lot of credit when it comes to pushing FDR on that in particular. And FDR, she had actually, I don't know if she had set up this meeting, but Booker T. Washington had gone to the White House, but instead of being able to go in, he had to be snuck into the White House because you did not want to see the Southern Democrat segregationists see all of this stuff and then start to kind of do their thing. But yeah, I mean, he gave us the first female cabinet member, Frances Perkins. I believe her name is Frances Perkins, who was a labor secretary. And it's like he saw working people. Now, there was really working white people, because that's really who he was mostly focused on. This seems to be and also another issue with the ways in which we talk about working people in 2026. But he saw working people and he was basically like, we have to put these people to work. We get the national parks. Yosemite does not happen without FDR. All of these public works do not happen without him. He created the first kind of social safety net with the New Deal. But I think he deserves to be in the nostalgic area, just because I think Carter does point things out that he did have to be pushed. This thing did not come from within him. He had to be pushed on a lot of different things. And I think that's, I don't know.
I think you could go in the Mary Kay tier too, because I do think there's a way in which people, particularly progressives, can look at what FDR did and kind of be like, that there's a way in which we can more mythologize what he did, right? Like even though,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. And so there's
Yeah.
a way
Yeah.
in which it's useful. The word, the term I was trying to think of before we move there is interest convergence, which is it's an idea that racial progress for Black people occurs only when it aligns with white interests, and like that for me.
Say that again. Say that again.
Yeah,
So the people can hear it in the back.
The idea is called interest convergence, and it's the idea that racial progress for Black people only occurs when it also serves the interests of white people. Now, I would argue the trick is it always serves the interests of white people, but like regular white people, working class white people, which most of us are, it rarely serves the interests of upper middle class and wealthy white people. But I think that's the thing that we see happen with the draft and other policies is you have to show these things. You have to show white people how it benefits them too. So, but yeah, I think for me, it's the Mary Kay tier, especially now with the way we're trying to become trying to move the Democratic Party towards more socialist norms.
I agree, and I'm gonna say the repackaging of his slogan, like the Green New Deal, which I hate.
Yep.
I hate that
Yes.
packaging because that's just the most unimaginative name. I feel like, yes, market, figure it out, but it's like we don't need to repackage something that was done in the 1930s and 1940s. In our era, in the 21st century, what is this thing? And so, but yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of left-leaning and super duper progressive marketing around
Yep.
The Green New Deal is what the Green New Deal is to the New Deal. Jurassic World is to Jurassic Park.
Correct.
Okay, we got the SAT. Is it SAT season? I don't know. I'm too old for that. I love that. Moving on to Martin Luther King. I mean,
I threw him in there because I wanted to.
It's great. Yeah, do it.
Yeah, and Carter, you know what? Let's start with you first, since you're more of a King historian than me. I have my own thoughts, but I want to hear yours first.
I mean, I have to start by saying, this is probably one of the people that you've heard me quote. I don't know how many times, and just the things I read and I write. I have such immense respect for not only the work he did, but he's such an underrated academic. I mean, people don't realize he had a PhD in his early 20s in systematic theology. Like, this man could read multiple languages. That's why he was, you listen to some of his sermons, read his speeches, and he's talking about Socrates and Aristotle and all this ancient Greek and African philosophy because he was that smart. It's insane. And that intelligence is really what fueled a lot of his ideas and imaginations and thoughts around democracy and hope. Obviously galvanized through his understanding of religion and a deep belief that for us to be fully human required committing ourselves to nonviolent resistance. And I think in this sense, to think about King that's so interesting is you get this, a waxing and waning and then a waxing, right? So King started with the bus boycott, and because of his ability to speak and his intelligence was put in front of people in a way in which he wasn't necessarily comfortable with, becomes a huge leader over time, begins to talk about capitalism and becomes anti-war and clearly sees how the military-industrial complex and capitalism and what's happening in Israel and Palestine, he's talking about all these things, and that begins to it makes the white people upset, the progressive whites, because then they want to talk about Black people's, or they don't want him talking about war, basically, just want to talk about race. And the Black people get upset because they're like, hey, you're talking about nationalist issues, which is going to distract from the issues at home. And he's like, no, all these things are interconnected. If you want to read a speech that names how they're interconnected, the best speech he ever gave, in my opinion, or one I would say maybe his most underrated speech, is Beyond Vietnam, which he gave at Riverside Church in New York, which really describes essentially what we might call the beginnings of a kind of intersectional understanding of liberation theology. I mean, again, if he lived for another 20 years, I just can't imagine what he was going to do with respect to his politics and his theology. And so for me, because it definitely receded, but then assassinated, like we said before, jumps up, stays up. I mean, you look at Jesse Jackson really trying to model what he was doing after King. For me, I think, he's still in that imagination carries such a key and important role, even though in so many ways he's been Santa Clausified, right? Like his teachings are way more radical than we actually like to believe. Like they totally made him Santa Claus. When you listen to what he's saying, like he would be so angry with like both parties. Like he would not be a Democrat. I'm telling you right now. Y'all brought up the Boondocks
earlier today, and I love that show.
That's one of my favorite episodes.
That's one of my favorite episodes when Martin Luther King comes back, because it's true. If he came back, he would be so upset at the world that he sees and the way he is interpreted. If you haven't watched that episode of the Boondocks, it's so funny. Oh man, it's so funny, and it's so true about how, because all that episode I think centers upon is that exactly what we're talking about, is like the Santa Clausification of leaders after their passing.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. And I'm almost curious, because I don't want to jump to tier making, but it's like there could be the very bottom tier, tier D, the greater good, and I think that where the cult of personality allows us to dig a little bit deeper into who the person is. I don't know. I mean, I think like what Carter says, he's sanitized so much, and he's used by a lot of white nationalists to say, it's not about the color of the skin, but the content of the character. And they have no idea what that means. They have no idea the context of that. But it feeds into the narrative that they're saying, which is DEI is bad.
Oh my God, it's the Russell. It's the Russell. Did y'all see this? Carter, you might have missed this. This guy who's like, starts off, he's like, "Hey, Martin is heaven sent."
Heaven sent, like, baby.
Martin's heaven sent. Barack was heaven sent. Trump was heaven sent. Epstein was heaven sent.
Didn't he even say Hitler too?
Yeah, he said Hitler. Like he was like, "We're all heaven sent." And it's like, oh, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Got it.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah. I think this is interesting in terms of tier, because obviously he's not in the Manson tier because he didn't want to be worshipped. But he fundamentally understood his role as a leader. And so I think I see what you're saying, Alex, though, in terms of like, this is where like the Manson tier is danger. Is the tier below that still someone who definitely is followed but not dangerous? Like that's what's fascinating, right? Because following King is like the antithesis of danger. Right. I mean, to an extent, actually, it's dangerous. Like, I mean, the man was assassinated, let's be honest, right? Like, so we can't say exactly it's not dangerous. Like somebody gonna want to take you out if you talk about sharing resources.
Somebody's going to take you out. And that's why you fear for Zohran's life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man, don't remind me.
The money.
Man, it's either A or D for me. Like literally, but it all depends on how y'all want to structure the tiers, right? Do you want to say A is someone who?
I think so. We were typically going on what we decided at the beginning, and I'm good to change it. Is the higher up in the tier, the more dangerous the effect.
Oh yeah, well. Yeah.
But we could change it to just say the higher up on the tier, the more intense the effect, not necessarily the more dangerous the effect, because we can make our own rules here.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's interesting, because I do think there is danger for some. It all depends on what you mean by danger, right? Like billionaires are going to think someone like Martin Luther King is dangerous.
Yeah.
But like for them, it's danger because it's just, taking things that they stole. It's,
man, all right. So this got dark. I wanted to be like the move tier, because like we're trying to change people, but also I named it move because if you try and make too much movement, the government's gonna bomb your ass.
Yeah.
For the reference, if y'all don't know what I'm talking about when the government bombed a city block. Because of good times. Yeah. So yeah,
All right,
yeah,
it's depressing. I'm like,
oh
man.
we gotta move because I know Carter's got to go. Our king.
All right.
Are we moving on? Let me Mr. Throat Goat?
The receiver of it. I wonder if it ever got boring for him. Anyway.
No.
Where he's just like, you know what? It doesn't hit like that first time. It's like taking dope. But speaking of dope, so Ronald Reagan is in the Manson tier, and because of all of the needless death that happened on his watch.
Pick
Going
one.
from, exactly, the crack epidemic, bam, AIDS, bam,
Iran-Contra,
Iran Contra, bam. Green is
Deregulating
good.
the FAA, like
Hey.
Bam.
I mean, like I'm like, good lord. And even when he was governor, like eliminating, making sure we don't
Yes.
have universal child care.
Bam.
Yes.
They,
Bam.
he the UC system used to be free before Ronald Reagan. Bam.
Yep. Yeah. So
And let's
not
be honest,
much-
the only good thing Ronald Reagan ever did was sign a assault weapons ban and that was only
Scared of
because
black
shot.
people.
that was because the Black Panthers kept showing up
The
in
Black Panthers,
Sacramento with
right. Oh,
long
yeah.
guns.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, we gotta, yeah. Oh my
Anyway,
God.
something about it now.
let's moving on. We've covered Ronald Reagan sufficiently, I think. Don't you?
I think Thatcher again. Thatcher is
Is
in the
up-
same.
yep.
That's what. Because Thatcher is just the UK version.
Mm-hmm.
I will say the thing about Thatcher is that at least I feel like Thatcher would say things that when I remember reading about her in history, I was like, oh, like she talked about the importance of character. She's like, oh, character like matters and it will like determine your life. And I'm like that, and there's a part of me that like I kind of agrees with that, right? But then you're just like, there's also the. What's underneath that message, right? In terms of, oh, you're poor because you're lazy. That's basically what she was saying, So, but no, Thatcher fits in the same categories in terms of creating the kind of imperial system that led to dismantling of the National Health Service over there, the dismantling of their postal service. When you look at their public education, again, like how they began to structure that and put it in attachments rather than allowing more students to have access to it. Like I remember Margaret Thatcher is people feel the same way about her there that are progressives the way we feel about Reagan here.
Yep. And
Terrible,
don't forget
Kenny.
Grenada
Terrible.
And the mines. So,
Moving on.
Yeah. Barry. Barry-O.
Barry-O.
Barry-O. I think.
You know what? I will say, I'm gonna say that, and then I'm gonna stop talking because I've already talked more than I probably should have on this episode. I know I've been giving Barack Obama. Y'all know how I feel about what happened with the financial crisis. That makes me so mad every time we talk about him because I feel like people don't because I think he started a slippery slope of not. I mean, people already weren't being held accountable, but I think you could trace so many of our current issues back to that. But however, when you look at what's happening in Iran and the fact that he was able to actually get a treaty signed with them, right? So we could have nuclear inspections to actually, like, think about that. Think about the fact that we wouldn't be in war right now. Like, literally, if they had just kept that infrastructure in place.
If we'd done nothing.
You just done nothing. Nothing.
Right.
And so and so now I'm thinking about what's happening now in light of the fact that he also tried to normalize relations with Cuba, and Cuba's basically being starved to death. Like we are hurting Cubans, we are hurting Iranians, and so to that extent, right? I know I'll be giving him some stick. I'm gonna give him some flowers right now. And say these are two things I see happening right now that he did pretty good. Barry did all right. Barry did all right.
Real quick, because this just came to me. Donald Trump in Iran. First of all, let's go back. What Donald Trump is doing in Cuba is genuinely also a war crime.
It should be a war crime. It's a war crime.
I just want to flag that. I just want to flag that real quick. If you're not paying attention to that, it is genuinely a humanitarian disaster and should be a war crime. But Donald Trump in Iran, speaking with big heavy Dallas Cowboys episode. Do you remember Trump with Iran? Do you remember Leon Let It Be?
Oh my goodness.
Leon, let it be! Don't touch it!
Let it be. Don't touch it, man.
Don't touch it, Leon! It's the ball. Just don't touch it! That's all Trump had to do. Just don't touch it. Couldn't do it. I think it was the Dolphins. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. He's like, I got it. No, you don't.
No, you don't, man.
So
Yeah. No, I think I have a lot of. I don't want to say I deified him. My Obama love started to kind of lose a little bit of steam towards the end of his presidency. It's kind of vacillated post presidency. But I would put him in the nostalgic kind of area because I think that's kind of where we are with him.
And I also think the way he's responded to Trump, I've just been like fundamentally disappointed. I honestly feel like Michelle's responded better. Like Michelle doesn't say, you can look at Michelle's face and say, you can tell she's not saying what she actually thinks. Like she is stopping some words coming from out of her mouth. And Barack is like calculated. Like I would say this, Michelle wants to be like, this motherfucker. Like you can just see it in her. You can see it. I'm like, yeah. So I think that's what really disappointed me is that he should be galvanizing people to fundamentally shift the rhetoric and tone and behave differently. But, again, he's just more in the middle than I think people realize.
He could and should really focus his energy on moving people towards actual goals, instead of, especially with politics, instead of focusing on the person, focusing on what we're trying to accomplish. Instead of focusing on Franklin Roosevelt, focusing on workers' rights. Instead of focusing on Cesar Chavez, we focus on farm workers, because that's who actually matters.
Movement mattered the most. And even in the civil rights movement, you had, Abernathy, you had Lawson, you had names, luminaries who very few people know of. And then John Lewis, the kids who were part of SNCC, and also the kids who left SNCC to be the origins of the Black Panther movement. So, like, one thing I'll say about Barack Obama really quick and Donald Trump. Barack Obama was a transformational candidate. Donald Trump is a transformational president. We're living out the consequences of Donald Trump's presidency and policies more so than we did Barack Obama. And I think that's the real telling part of, I think, of his legacy. So Zohran is in the move area. I think Carter said it earlier today, which scared the hell out of me. It's just like, when you start showing people how government can work effectively for you, the moneyed powers. Again, I'm not calling him Jesus, but it's always interesting when Jesus start fucking with the money. And you know what I'm saying? You mean to tell me Jesus is flipping the table? People don't understand why Jesus is flipping the table. You are coming from a different part of the region, and you've got to exchange your money to the currency that is accepted there. Then you have to get these sacrifices and pay again. And you have very impoverished people doing this. And I'll be honest, Jesus lost his mind. He couldn't take it. It's like, Xfinity selling you, or you still got the same internet deal, and they're offering a cheaper deal somewhere else, and you're like, what is going on? Yes, it happened to me. That's why I'm saying
we know.
I felt that's like
we felt a little personal twitch in this one.
I was like, that
why
feels,
I'm saying it.
Yeah.
But I
oh
think
man,
that's a personal cop.
Yeah, but when you mess with Martin Luther King Jr., he died working the night after speaking about sanitation workers.
They didn't shoot him when he was fucking with the racism shit. They shot him when he started fucking with the money.
And I think
even the way
Zohran
talks about, like, even the naming of things, like he's talking about the financial crisis in New York, he's named it the Eric Adams or the Adams deficit or something like that. Like, I think just being so clear and explicit about how we got here, it is totally the move. And I mean, y'all know, obviously I'm a pastor. I pray. That is a man I pray for every week, because I'm just like, keep him safe.
So one of the things I think where Zohran, and I think in many ways Zohran is standing on Barack Obama's shoulders, because he grew up learning from Barack Obama. I know he did. And you see, that I think Zohran understands that we need to move away from cult of personality and move towards, social movements that are supported by groups of people supporting issues and supporting human rights. And I think he understands that by the way you see his social media. Now that he's not a candidate, yes, there's still a lot of Zohran walking and talking to camera, but you also see him putting forward his people in his administration more. The Taco Bell mukbang video that he did the other day, it wasn't just him. It was him and his commissioner is the wrong word, but the head of the department who was running that clawback money against Taco Bell and Dunkin' Donuts that are going back to New York workers. He's got his guy there with him so that he is elevating other people so that it's not just him. I think he understands that, and really, is maybe a better cult of personality leader, because he's trying to shove it off.
His disciples. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. The parallels. All right.
All right.
Gotta go.
Yep.
You gotta run. Wonderful. Carter is out. I think we're wrapping up anyway. Alex, give us, I think I touched a little bit on what, how dangerous following one person and having an idol is, and that we do need to be moving towards issue-based movements. Give me what your final thoughts are there.
I mean, my final thoughts is hero worship will always leave you in disappointment. Because the people, you will spend more time defending them and their inactions or terrible actions instead of uplifting key pieces of a movement, right? And I think you lose sight of the collective, the people. This is people power. This isn't just about one person. Now, one person can elevate the way that we talked about with Zohran and Barack Obama kind of coming out of nowhere and elevating this idea of, like, we can be the change that we see. But yeah, I think I lament, and I'll wrap this up, but I I'm both angry and I weep, if that's possible, for the people who willfully, and some unwittingly, but mostly willfully, follow a movement of death and out of their own brokenness. And that's a shame. I mean, it's going back to Jets fans. I mean, they still go to those games, man. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah,
you know,
hoping one day it'll turn around.
hoping one day it'll turn around. And so I think what we learned in this last week, you and I and Dr. Carter, and what we've talked about is that movements are powered by people, not a person. And I think the sooner we get that, the better. But I think we live in an age where social media and visuals create
everything is pushing towards that cult of personality and that idol worship. Cults are, the internet has democratized cults in a lot of ways, you know, because you get to, and it allows people to, the internet allows people to isolate people anywhere, because you can reach them through the internet and through their camera right there, and you can keep them isolated even in their own room and indoctrinate them. And so it really, now more than ever, I couldn't agree more. I think that we need to be pushing towards, you know, humanitarian based movements that center all human dignity instead of idolizing the one person. I hope y'all learned something today. This was a little bit of a ride, and we got some big guests coming up. April's going to be a big month. We got election season coming. You let us know what you want us to talk about. We'll see if we can work it in. We appreciate you sitting down and hanging out with us.